Hello, we welcome you to our webinar.
Good afternoon. We are very happy to see you all with us.
Today is a special day for us. Today we are talking about automated profile-based decision and GDPR trends for 2022.
Actually, it's quite an interesting tema for us too, because we have a lot of projects and a lot of clients who are working with some kind of automated decision making, some kind of online behavioral advertising, and so on and so on. And it's always important to know where to start and how to go with this project, where you will finish in the end. So we hope that we will exchange the expertise, you will tell us your stories, and you will maybe introduce in the chat, so we will know who is with us today. And of course, we'll project it with our agenda.
Yes, but before the start, we want to tell you that today, as I said, is a special webinar, because today, if you are an IAPP member, if you hold a certificate like CPA, CIPP, and so on, you can actually get 1 point for viewing this webinar. If you wish to get such point, just tell us about it right on our email at the end of the webinar, and we will send you
the evidence.
Yes, that will be cool. Okay, so let's proceed. Actually, for now, let's start with introducing ourselves, I believe. Here is you. I will introduce you. Katerina Dubas, Head of Privacy Practice at Legal IT Group, CIPP, external DPO. Katerina worked with different kinds of GDPR projects, and not only GDPR, has a great experience in DPO external services, and has worked with many companies like in branch of EdTech, Sales Tech, and so on. And she will be glad to share her knowledge today with you, actually.
Yes, that's true. And with me is Anton Tarasiuk. He is our managing partner. He is also the external DPO. He can also advise you on how to make your project happen, how to proceed with your compliance, how to audit yourself, how to help your contractors with their GDPR compliance, and so on and so on. So don't hesitate to write us, especially to Anton, to me, to ask your questions and to learn more about the GDPR compliance in our service.
Okay, so guys, we have here a chat. Actually, you can write your questions. It will be great if you would write where you're from, like from what country are you, or from which city you are, so we could understand who our viewers are for today. Thank you, and let's actually begin. In case you watch this webinar after the end, also don't hesitate to comment it. We will be really grateful. Okay, let's start.
Delightful.
So, our agenda, maybe you will tell some words about it.
We'll start with just introducing a few concepts. The important point to know is that this webinar is not only addressed to DPOs and our colleagues. We welcome the larger audience, so if you are a CEO or maybe marketing specialist or some kind of other man who is not a woman or a non-binary person that are interested in actually GDPR at all, you are also welcome to see our webinar and contact us to ask your questions, of course. And you can write in the chat what are you doing, what is your profession, and so on and so on. So we'll start with just concepts, and we proceed to the privacy program rollout. So we'll discuss how the automated decision projects are done in the terms of the GDPR and in the frames of the GDPR compliance. And we will end with some case studies. We have some questions for you prepared, so you can answer them in the chat. And we have some finds and some trending topics to discuss, of course.
Actually, yes, we do. So let's actually proceed. So profiling and automatic-based made decisions. As you see here, there is a great picture provided by our designer Anastasia. She worked on it for a few days, I believe. So the idea is that from the very beginning you know nothing about some kind of user that tries your services or wants to buy your product and so on. For instance, you just may know the gender, as you see at the left of the screen. And then you may know that she, for instance, this girl bought a dress actually, and you know that she bought a dress and she has it now. And maybe after some case you will exchange some information with her, with her training gym, where she does fitness, and actually you know that she you know the parameters of her figure because you sold her the dress, and you know that she goes to the training gym. And by knowing all this, you also know that one time a week she has a cheat day and goes and eats different snacks, pizza, and so on. So that based on this information, you can actually offer her different services. You can offer your possible advertisers to show her their ads. For instance, you can offer her to take a look at different restaurants, cafes with snacks that are near her, that are on the way to her gym, and so on. So the basic idea is that mostly profiling and automated decision making is used in marketing, and when we receive some kind of information like, you are here, just visit this place, or for instance, based on your decisions, we recommend you to buy a new car, for instance, and so on. So from the practical point of view, it's mostly marketing, but also there may be different other use cases and so on. So just for beginning, let's remember that more information about someone we know, better and relevant ads we can show to him or her actually. Okay, so profiling and ADM concepts. So what are the most interesting use cases from your point of view?
Of course, there's advertising tech. Mostly the advertising is really widely used, and of course banking, one of the trending use cases, because creditworthiness needs some qualification, needs some gathering of information, some analysis, and you always need data for that. So of course your banking and fintech in general is one of the most popular actually use cases for automated decision making. Of course, insurance, by the way, obtaining, calculating risks and so on. Sales tech, because you have to find your ideal customer, you have to reach him or her somehow. So of course you have to rely on plenty of decision making before you are proceeding with your offer. And of course it's medicine and healthcare in general, some healthcare services like apps and so on that can help you predict some events in your life, or for starters. And transport and employment, you have to somehow manage the flow of people, flow of transport around the city, and of course it's by observing trends and using them in your next following profiling activities. You just help yourself and your city to live healthy life, to build a strong transportation system, to help people be at work at time, and so on and so on. So of course, these are one of the most popular IDM activities. And how to proceed with profiling? Is it just one kind of it, or there are more of them?
Well, there are different kinds of profiling actually, and different kinds of automated decision making. So okay, let's do some basic case. For instance, you have a bank account, and bank has actually you as a client, and for instance, bank has a profile of some user, possible theoretical user that spends more than, I don't know, $4,000 per month on wine, for example, and that's some kind of profile which can be adapted to and which can be actually customized, and you can be the one who is included in that group of people who are considered to be alike actually, who are considered to be like this. And in case you are put in those profiling system, if actually you have a label on your head with something like wine drinker, for instance, in this case you may receive some ads, or you may receive some, for instance, as you have a lot of money, you may receive some offers with getting credits, for instance, and so on. So that's how it actually works. So you can be put in some profiling group, and then based on in which group you are actually, you can receive different decisions making on you. For instance, you want to apply for a credit, but if you are in a group of people who have who don't have many money, a lot of money, you actually may not receive it because it's too risky for a bank. But on the other hand, in case you have a lot of money and you actually don't need a credit, you may be offered a credit. So that's how it works actually. So basically, maybe it can be just profiling, it can be profiling and human-based decision-making on that profiling, and it can be totally automated profiling and totally automated decision-making process.
Remember to include human factor to that, of course. But of course, any technology gives you advantages and disadvantages, because it's just how technology does. You just have to put some effort and receive some cost, of course. And when we are talking about profiling and automated decision making, we are talking about we have advantages such as bigger numbers of sales, a bigger number of successful confirmations of ordering new services, more viewers, for example, less dependence on the human factor. You just need less human resources just to run your business, because you automated most of the decisions that you make daily. And of course, smart spending. You have to decide how to spend your money, how to spend your attention, time, resources, human involvement, contractor involvement, and so on in your business, and just avoiding extra cost. You can spare extra and return it to business, of course. So your smart spending helps to grow your business bigger. But of course, there are some disadvantages. Such as them is, of course, it's no algorithm is ever ideal, because all the algorithms that are used in automated decision making are mostly humans, and humans are prone to be biased, and to be actually not attentive to some kinds of decisions or some kinds of factors. You can just miss something, or you can just not see something, or not consider it as important, and therefore not include it in your algorithm. So of course, we may include some algorithms, some solutions that use automated decision making. They only make some stereotypes stronger, and they are only reiterated in your decisions and reiterated in your daily business, and you can just not know about that. You can just miss it completely and don't really know about that. And of course, you can lock someone in the discrimination bubble. You can filter them from from pursuing other interests that can make them they can be interested in, like offer them only one kind of services, meanwhile they're interested in some other, of course, too. And you can just offer them and just ask them to buy the same things they're not more interested in. So it's important to understand that there are some pros, there are some cons, and find your way in between with them. And GDPR compliance actually helps with that. But how?
So let's what about taking one more example? For instance, as they say, your YouTube start screen is a life you deserve, actually, because you actually formulated by your actions how you see, how you look at videos, how you click on it, and so on. That's very important, actually, and you may look at it. On the other hand, you actually may be discriminated, and there are some cases when some ad providers actually discriminate people. For instance, if you will target your advertisement on people without financial education, and you will know that for now they are in crisis. For instance, you know that they have no money and they have applied for credits, they have not received it, and only then, knowing that, you try to actually start with your advertising on them with different high risk financial services, like a lot of percent to pay, or it will be some game actually they cannot win because they don't understand these financial rules, and so on. So you discriminated them because you use the situation they are in, and you also use that they may not actually understand what is happening. So that can be a bias actually based on that knowledge. It's very important. So when you use knowledge against your customers to actually use their the lack of positive things in their situation, you actually may discriminate them, and that can be actually considered as prohibition of GDPR.
The case Anton is referring to is KX Bank in this October, actually. The bank has access to the credit profile of the customer without his consent, and offered him some high-risk financial credit. So if you want to learn more, you just need to follow the following. The recent news about the GDPR fines. You will find many interesting ways to use profiles, of course, that are not always in the compliance with GDPR, surely.
Okay, let's move on. So basically we will talk about profiling in the details right now. So actually, when you do profiling, you actually process the personal data. So that in this case, according to GDPR and many other laws, you have to be transparent. You have to inform the data subject what is happening. You have to have a legal basis on doing that and all that stuff as it is. And also, if you put him into some profiling, it will be great to actually inform him that for now you are putting in profile not successful people. Thank you very much. And for now you will be targeted with such advertising. So actually you have to understand that when you get some information, and then put some data subject to some profile, actually you put a label on him, and even if you don't use this information on your own benefit, you may sell this information, and in this case it will also be actually a processing, so that you have to be in compliance with all points, like when you process personal data. It's very important.
Thank you for the overview. We may proceed, I guess. We may proceed, I guess.
Okay.
Because actually, of course, if you are using profiling, some more stronger obligations of transparency do apply to you. So don't remember to describe how the profiling works in your privacy policy.
Don't forget, maybe.
At least.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So if the company uses profiling, what are the use cases? Actually, how does it work? You collect a large amount of data. It's like you just analyze his behavior on your website, how they contacted you, how you contacted them, what we're talking about, what were you offered, or for example, or vice versa. And of course, you just compile all this information and you look for some trends. You just categorize it in different areas. How is behavior? What is his income? What is his sex? What is his gender? Maybe if you can access this information. What is his financial situation, and so on and so on. And you just analyze it and trying to find your ideal customer. And you always analyze this ideal customer or the service you are offering with this profile, with these characteristics of the person, to understand how perfectly they match the description and how likely they are to buy your service or product. And in this way, company use profiling to predict someone's behavior. We are remembering that the people are always highly unpredictable. Actually, they can be predictable to some certain extent, but they're always some kind of not really always reasonable, let's say. It's just a cornerstone of the behavioral economics. So of course we can try to predict person's behavior, and sometimes we are quite successful with it. Profiling is used for successfully prediction.
Like when you show a discount on something you as a customer wanted on Black Friday, and he actually buys it.
So of course we can use profiling, but only to the compliant extent.
Yes, that's actually true. Okay, so let's move on. By the way, just one more example. For instance, when in case of B2B sales, there are a lot of cases when there are different, even sales schools and so on, when they tell you that you have to have about 30 or 40 profiles of possible client, and when you talk with him or her on LinkedIn in frames of offering your services, for instance, you analyze who is he actually or she. For instance, he is a man from 30 to 40, and he has a car and he has 2 children, so that he is a possible jack. And if he is a possible jack, then we talk to him like in special manner, or we don't tell him just buy, we tell him it would be grateful to buy. Then he answers, and we know that he is some kind of suspicious jack. And then we also we changed the script, actually the selling script, as we do. In this case, actually, you are doing profiling, so that you have to remember that, because if you put some people in some group, it's actually profiling. So, and what you have actually to do if you have profiling?
We start with transparency, of course. We inform people that we are collecting data for profiling purpose, and we describe what kind of profiling purpose it is. It is solely automated, does it require or does it include some human intervention, and so on. Now, how can they ask their additional questions? For example, if they are not satisfied with the decision that was being made, they are subject to, they can always ask the person to review this decision and just to make up for the person if the decision was actually incorrect. Of course, we are informing about our profiling activities, the extent of the profiling, the decisions that can be made of course, to describe to what extent is the person affected by it. And we obtain consent. We have a legitimate basis to carry out the profiling activity. Consent is one of the advisable, because the person knows that it can be profiled. The person knows that you use automated decision making. It knows that its decision is nothing personal. It's just how the mechanism, the algorithm works, and it can provide his own opinion on the matter to the contact point, for example, your email. So in this case, of course, we provide that we have to comply with our transparency obligation. We have to find the legitimate basis. Mostly it will be consent. And we have to provide them with a right to object, not to be subject to the automated decision making, because it is actually it's a cornerstone of all this profiling compliance.
Yeah, actually, let's imagine like you sit near your screen. You came on some website. You don't see the ad your friend sees, and then you ask actually on the website, okay, why don't I have actually an offer my friend has? And they just inform you. Actually, that's because you were put in a group of losers based on your life score, so that you will not receive good offers, only for losers. Thank you very much for using our services. So as you understand, this approach shall not be much compliant actually, because someone was put into some group, actually was profiled not using his consent, but maybe the company used some kind of other legal basis, but it would be really risky. So one thing, they did not receive consent. Second thing, there was profiling that actually discriminates this guy or girl. That's the point. So do it attentively and actually use privacy pros to help you with actually making a flow of this personal data processing, because it's very important to start with something good, not just doing constant text and so on. Okay?
There is a question.
There is a question.
Yes.
Okay.
Do you believe consent is the only legal ground from the GDPR that can be used for implementing profiling?
Well, basically no, because we can use some kind of legal interests. We can use actually in different cases.
A contract, for example.
A contract, for example. We can even use other bases like vital interests of someone if we will have some group of people and we need to help.
COVID-19, yes.
Yeah, and we need to help them. So basically the answer will be as follows. When we do it for marketing purpose, I believe that consent is the best way possible. But on the other hand, other ways are possible as well.
For example, on the land behavioral advertising is always relies on consent mostly. Because they can try to rely on the legitimate interest. But many of the regulators, many of the supervisory authorities are strongly against use of legitimate interest for profiling. We have to remember that, and we have to actually take it into account when we are building our compliance programs. So, of course, consent is not the only option, but it's just an often option.
Okay, let's talk about some kind of more interesting content, even if it's possible, of course.
Where is the line between the automated decision making and human involvement?
So actually the line is, if you want to put it, actually in the possibility to affect. Not only procedural decisions like, okay, I will tell the customer that I was involved. Actually, no. Actually, if someone can affect. For instance, let's imagine a situation. You apply with a resume to some company, to some big company, international corporation. In this case, you have to not to send your resume actually, but to fill the gaps, to fill the form, and to state your experience and so on, recommendations and blah blah blah. And actually after that, you may actually be interviewed by some kind of script. No interview. And after that, you receive some kind of no. They say to you that you were rejected because based on the best algorithm in the world that searches for only best of the best A players and so on, you were rejected because you are not A player. You were actually put in the group of losers one more time, and then you were rejected by the machine. Deus ex machina was actually put into play. So what's happened? Do you have a right to object actually?
Of course you do. We remember that under the Article 22, if I'm not mistaken, in general, the automated decision making that includes that first, that is solely based on the algorithm, and second, in profiling, and second, does not involve any human. For example, any human intervention, yes, and produce legal effects or similar serious impacts. They always trigger that is Article 22 automatically, and in general they are actually prohibited unless the person expresses some kind of consent, or any other legitimate base can be used. So as a general rule, as a rule of thumb, we try to avoid such decisions where they produce actually serious effects like refusal in credit or some kind of financial service, like restriction of movement, like restriction in the rights of housing, the rights to education, the rights of employment especially. It's important to remember why you use automated decision making to find your candidate. And of course, when we are talking about some sensitive data, use of sensitive data on children, sensitive data on maybe legally incapable or restrictedly capable people, and so on and so on. It's important to remember.
Well, interesting fact that actually me and Kate, we are based in Kiev, Ukraine, if you don't know. Actually, in Ukraine we also have a personal data protection law, and there is also a right to actually to reject the decision made in automatical way, and to reject being to feel the consequences on such decision, and actually to make a revolution to tell the entity who made such decision that I want to be actually judged by a human. I have a right. Actually, so it's very important, and it's a good thing to know that you may appeal against machine. Okay, let's move on. Okay, so when GDPR sets some requirements to be met by companies using automated decision making. So first one to do will be notifying actually individuals that decisions shall be made automatically. It's important and logical. Second one, that actually we have to get the individual's explicit consent to automated based decision making. So we cannot use it before actually he tells for us okay. If in case we are talking about legal consequences or same ones especially. Also, we shall offer him or her simple methods for demanding human intervention, expressing his or her point of view and engage in the decision. Actually, so a human has a right to understand why that's happened, and to have a P2P actually communication. That will be really great if we can actually argument our decision and so on. And the last one, we can check regularity as algorithms and data processing, data being used. So it's the most actually interesting point when we have to tell our possible clients, our possible data subject that use our services, how actually the black box works, how decisions are made. And that's not quite easy, because when you will try to tell someone how advertising networks work in the details, like DSP, SSP, and all that stuff, it's actually hard to understand, so that you have to keep it in very plain language and tell what is really important to the people. So according to your privacy policy, all your other documents, it has to be understood. It has to be some like third guy or third girl have to understand what is happening and why some decision can be made. Actually, that's so. Okay.
Yeah, let's proceed. Thank you for your questions. You can write we can write to the chat, so we will answer you, of course, and we are welcome newcomers.
Okay,
Thank you for coming.
That impacts.
There are some time for some real screenshots, I guess. Actually, this one is made from my Facebook account. I was served with this ad when I was preparing this webinar, and they decided why not discuss it. So we have this window that says us why am I seeing this ad, and what's the impact can be made on me by the social media, by that is evidenced by the screenshot. So we have some companies that decide that I'm actually their target audience. If I'm not mistaken, it's some dice set for Dungeons and Dragons. They decided they somehow learned that I'm actually playing Dungeons and Dragons, and they decided to offer me their new custom-made dice sets. You know the stuff, the jazz. And I was just reading it, and I couldn't understand, because I've never mentioned on my YouTube, on my Facebook profile, that I'm actually playing. I've never liked so many posts that are describing Dungeons and Dragons. I've never even maybe went to the links that are leading to YouTube videos about Dungeons and Dragons. I don't know how this happened, and I was just looking at this screenshot, and I couldn't understand. And how could such thing harm me in a way? Of course, they are interfering with privacy, because if my theory proved right, and they are actually tracking me based on my let's say browser history, why not? They can understand that they can actually disregard my privacy. They can interfere with my privacy and say that look, we will offer our audience, our advertisers, information about you based not only on your behavior on the Facebook, on the Meta, but in general, what are you doing in the internet at all? And of course, it doesn't take into account my own limits in privacy. I'm okay with you with serving me advertising with Dungeons and Dragons about the dice set, because, for example, but maybe I'm not so comfortable with some other purchases that I made via the internet. Who knows? And I can't actually limit. I can't actually know whether they regard my privacy or not. I don't have any standard option to make that happen. There is, of course, the way how this site is demonstrated to me. I see the icon, and it's quite actually is full of information that they list my interests, they list my age, the target audience. They offer me some links to limit the privacy intrusiveness that they do. And of course, they can use my own weaknesses against me, and I'm not really comfortable with that. So when we are building our compliance scheme, when we are building a compliance management program, we have to understand not only the way that we comply, but how our customer can perceive it. Do they feel threatened or not? And it's actually quite important, because the expectations to the privacy are all too limited or too included into this legitimate interest assessment, for example. So they are part of the compliance scheme.
So what we have here actually is the technology of third-party cookies. For instance, when Facebook uses Facebook Pixel, which is also a very widespread technology. Facebook actually asks a website where he puts that pixel and tells the website owner that in this case the website owner and the Facebook will be co-controllers of the personal data received by Facebook and this website owner. And in this case, there shall be actually an agreement of of using all this information. And the most interesting thing is that in this case, the website has also to get the respective consent from someone. And basically, as far as I know, not always website owners put that information in privacy policy, so that it really is a thing. It really is a case if such advertisements then after that are made actually legal, and could they be made in like that, because you actually as a human being, as a data subject, may not remember on which sites you actually were browsing, and after that when you receive such an advertisement at Facebook or somewhere else, you may think that you lose control actually of your life, because everyone knows everything about you, and it's not a very good thing actually. That's it. Okay, some more slide of you. Okay, actually,
because it's to the part where we're discussing that profiles are not always clear, not always actually accurate. Because I'm not really interested in Natalie, Spanish singer. It's again the screenshot from my Facebook page, and I'm not really interested in the D12 place. It's a place in Kiev. There are some exhibitions are made. But I'm actually really interested in modern literature, and of course I'm interested in John Coltrane and jazz. But Natalie, seriously? And if they run this, actually some automated decision based on the information that one of my interests are Natalie, I guess they will fail miserably.
Okay, one more time, guys. For now, you can actually like our video, subscribe on our channel, and actually what you can do more. You can even write into the chat something like where are you from and do you like this webinar and so on.
Try clicking why I'm saying this out. You will learn really a lot about yourself.
Okay, so we have different cases here.
Favorite game? Fine or not to fine?
Fine or not to fine. Actually, it's those cases are not such easy as they may not be, as they may seem. In case you're watching this video in not in a live format, you can now put it on stop, read all this text and then guess would it be legal, would the company have been fined, and so on. So the first case, it's about as following. Actually, video surveillance cameras in a giant shopping mall were installed to protect the property. So we have cameras in the supermarket, for instance, in the mall, and their aim of their usage is to protect the ownership right of those who own something in this market. Despite this fact, the cameras cover the part of the state road. Okay, so the camera is put you can see something that is happened on the road, and was able to detect the infringement of parking and traffic rules. Okay, so someone actually parked in a bad place, in a bad manner, or actually violated the traffic rules and so on, and sent the pre-filled forms on violations to the police station nearby. Oh my god, so the camera actually sends something. Okay, so we have the artificial intelligence. Moreover, the cameras have also been taught to detect shoplifters and run searches in the social media to identify the offender, and also send the early reports to the police. Not bad.
So what are you thinking? Is this GDPR compliant or not? You can write your variants to the chat while we are discussing it.
Okay, so 1, 2, 3, compliant or not? So my point is not at all, basically, because when you just enter into supermarket, you don't give someone actually to search through your networks, to your social media, to parse actually with robot your social media pages, your activity, all your life. And so on, just to understand if you are a possible shoplifter or not, because it's actually the job of police to investigate the cases and so on. So when a company uses these cameras just to understand, to actually film, to keep everything okay, and to provide the report to police, it's okay. But when actually it takes the police functions, maybe that camera shall put into jail as well. So I don't know, I don't like this point at all. Maybe what do you think?
I agree, actually, but I have to make a reservation that I accept that there can be a really tiny liability that this is a real case. It's not true. We just applied some fantasy, but I have to admit that there is some really tiny percent of likeliness that this case can be real. But I would like to complement your opinion and make a step further. We have to analyze not only the GDPR or national law, we have to apply also European human rights law. We have to understand the limits of intrusiveness and the limits of necessary action to put this scenario in action, actually, because I can't even imagine the situation where this kind of monitoring, this kind of profiling, this kind of automated decision making would be really necessary to prevent someone from committing a crime. Because we have to analyze all the situations, we have to understand whether there's less intrusive action can be used to prevent shoplifters. But still, I agree, it's not acceptable.
Maybe we may use automatic nets to put on possible shoplifters when some camera detects if in case they we can actually try to measure their temperature and understand in case if someone is nervous, then we have to put him into a net automatically. So it will be automated.
Bear traps everywhere.
And it will be automated based decision made. So
Go full Indiana Jones.
Okay, so the next case, maybe you can tell us about it actually.
Okay, so we have a company A residing in Belgium, and it decided to change its core business activities from marketing research, which was conducting for its client recently, to data and data analytics on demand, to development of machine learning models to be applied by the clients. So you are just tired of contacting them and doing all the hand work, and you decide to automate everything, including your core business. So the company decided to sell some of the already collected data sets of personal data of the customers, the biggest car retailers in the state, and the insurance company B decided to buy it for internal researching, just to understand how its core business can be affected and enhanced by using of it. How do you think, should you find or not to find the company A for actually this selling product?
1, 2, 3. Right, your case is put in a pause and we proceed. So, okay, so in
what
case...
do you think?
Well, in case it depends actually on circumstances that we had when we obtained, when we used the respective legal basis of getting all this information. Because in case we received actually a consent with different modifying points, like okay, I agree to, you may use it as this, also you may sell it, I give you also I will fill this form and so on. So in case it was actually a great legal basis that actually provides the possibility to do it, it may be possible, but in any case the documents have to be studied respectfully. On the other case, in case if this information was, for instance, actually parsed, I don't know, from LinkedIn by some spider and some robot, and then you use it, automated it, made some decisions on it, and then sold it, I believe that it shall be not a compliance point. What do you think?
It's a complicated question. I'm not so sure as the first case, because of course you have the right to develop your business, to enhance your business models, to decide what to automate and for what not. And of course it's always dependent on how you execute it and how this machine learning model will be executed. Is it provided as a service, as software as a service, so you just operate everything and you offer just an interface to manage it, or you are just actually licensing it, like you are making it in a box, you package it and send to the client and help him to actually roll out this predictive model. It's always dependent on how you contact with personal data that is collected by your client. And in this way, first case will be highly dependent on the context of use of this model. So I can't say that it's, of course, the subject of the fine or not. I need a context.
Yeah, so we actually we have some comments on a previous case. So Larissa M writes us that she believes overall that the measure is excessive. However, there is a strong public interest for the last part of your case, referring sending early reports to the police. Well, I can agree with that.
Yes.
Early
of course,
reports.
if you are buying something that is restricted, like maybe some weapons or something like that, of course you can be interested in who has bought this weapon. Yes.
Also, we have the one Tony Richmond. He actually writes as follows: I'm okay with the footage to be used as digital evidence for this case from criminal legal perspective. Yeah,
I would rather not. I'm not assigned to shoplift, so.
Okay, but again, the searches the camera is going to use are mostly open source available data, so it is already lawfully accessible, I believe. Well, it depends on what you actually call the open source data, because if we talk about profiles in LinkedIn, in Facebook and so on, they are not open source data. That are the data that is placed on that sites with some aim to use it on that site, not for other people to use it the way they want and so on. So that we have to actually define the data that is put on social media by someone. So this guy grants a license as it is stated in the Facebook and LinkedIn and so on, and the data that is put in different state registers as an open data. For instance, register of notaries, registers of barristers, and all that stuff. Okay.
By the way, write in the chat, how do you think should data brokers be legal or not, and why? I'm really interested in it.
Okay, so we can have, maybe we'll talk about this in some fast manner. So some fines there actually were proceeded. So let's start with Cyprus. A fine for using the backward factor as in assessing the amount of remuneration of employees. Can you tell me something about this case?
It's only that you have to be really sure that your algorithm and that your service that you are using, that of course employs some automated decision making, is actually in compliance. And this fine refers to the Article 25 of the GDPR, privacy by design, privacy by default. Because if your algorithm is not, and the factor is not suitable for using for assessing people, especially in the employment context, don't use it. It's just as simple as that.
Okay, next case we have for Finland. So
there is a fine for series of violations, including the lack of risk assessment to the rights of related subjects during profiling and automated decision making as part of loyalty program. If not mistaken, it's a taxi service.
So
how do you think if you are running some data gathering for developing profiles of your customers, and then offer the service and the discounts, for example, as a part of your loyalty program, when the core business of your company is actually using the taxi service, would you conduct a data protection impact assessment?
When the core business of my company is what?
Is taxi service.
Taxis?
Taxi.
Taxi, yes. Like driving, yes. Not taxes. Okay. And I'm conducting actually a research to know my customers better. Okay, in this case I will study a lot of information about them, and actually the way they move, the way they buy taxi, the time actually they want to...
The battery level.
The time they use a taxi and so on. So I will know a lot of data about them and to define whether I can actually offer some loyalty to them, with a payment for loyalty. I believe, yes, that we should make a DPIA in this case, because a lot of data we have and a lot of possible information we can actually achieve when we summarize that data, when we work with the data and so on. We can receive something we didn't even expect to.
So remember that profiling and automated decision making triggers the DPIA, often in many countries actually.
Yeah, I think it's a really good practice to make a DPIA before actually doing all that stuff, before implementing it. Okay, so
and
next case.
Business is not the core business as usual. So be careful when you are reusing the data you obtain it for providing core service, for something like loyalty program. It's really important. And the third fine is in Austria, happened in Austria, and it's a legal sale of profiles with sensitive data to political parties and other organizations. Not mistaken, it's actually the Austrian Post.
So actually they had the political data and then they sold that.
Yes. People are subscribing to some political journals, to some political magazines and so on, so you can just predict their political views. And the Austrian Post, as the biggest post office that actually covers all country, they offered their political parties to sell them this data.
Okay, so what do? You actually run some kind of political text and so on, then you sell this to the parties.
Yes.
Okay, not bad, not bad. Good business.
And it's a governmental actually agency. Yes. So kind of weird, but I guess that in this case, the importance of the legitimate interest of political parties to buy this information has not outweighed the rights of the data subjects to actually keep their political views in private.
Okay, guys, so don't forget to like our webinar. Don't forget to actually subscribe on our channel. We have a lot of things to come more. So for now, we will take a look at ICO's opinion on advertisements. That is actually very fresh. It's 25th of November 2021, and there are a lot of things that were said there that are quite interesting actually. What we can say about it? We can say that online advertising now stays overly intrusive. What does it mean actually?
People don't really know how RTB platforms work. We have mentioned it earlier. They can't really understand. They are likely not to understand the extent of the personal data and profiling made on them. They can't actually exercise some really effective controls to avoid being tracked or avoid the retargeting or avoid processing of their sensitive data. And there is some findings that are actually described in this opinion. So in this case, actually the British regulator is quite unsure that online behaviorism advertising is right now. Is actually GDPR compliant in the concept.
So actually, what we have here, we have a look on trends, on what is actually happened, and so on. So we can see that the regulator, the UK regulator, says that there is an abuse of legitimate interest justification. It's actually, we can agree with it maybe, because advertising in internet, it was always based on the behavior or on the profiles. Because it really, because when you see something on the TV, yes, in advertising block that comes before the next show and after the first show, you can understand that you can actually think of possible people with some kind of interest watch this. For instance, when you show some advertising block in 12 a.m. On Monday, you will think that people who are at home will take a look at this advertising block, so that you can predict that they may be your possible target auditory in that point. But on the other hand, when we talk about the internet, there are more possibilities. You can actually use third-party cookies. You can actually follow the user on his journey on his browser and so on, so that you can provide with special personalized ads. And the way actually company do this right now may be some kind of not very comfortable for users. And the main idea is that by some time that may be changed, and the use of this legitimate interest and so on may be not as effective as they are now, I suppose.
But actually the Commissioner has analyzed some of the initiatives and some of the proposals that were said before, like the Google Privacy Sandbox and so on and so on. So if you are working in the area of digital advertising, or you are working with profiling and automated decision making more closely, and you have somehow missed this opinion, you could read it, because it's really interesting. And it reaffirms opinion that advertising in general is important for competition law. It's important for competition in the market. It's important for consumers, because they have to learn about new trends, new brands, and new goods or services that are offered. And advertising is one of the most effective things to do that, especially online advertising. And of course, it requires somehow some profile. Whether it's really big or not, because retargeting cannot work if we can't assign an identification and some number and some interest that we can keep track of.
Okay.
So in this way, it's important. And some just latest news.
Okay, so it's your slide.
If you are working with advertising, I wanted to reinforce this one more. If you're working with advertising, be extra careful, because of course this kind of decision making, just as example, they are developing quickly, and they are actually quickly. There's times that GDPR has 3 years, or even more than 3 years in force. And the fines are actually here. We can analyze them, and we can avoid making mistakes that others have done. And in the area of advertising, we can rely on some fine practice and history that was imposed on the others. For example, the IAB Europe, they are under investigation of their TCF platform. If you know that, if you have seen this cookie bots or something like that in the footer of the website you are visiting, you can actually safely decide that they can rely on this TCF platform. That if you are visiting the website of the other third parties, you will be followed by the consent you made on the one of the partner websites. So they are under investigation, and you have every time you decide which tool to collect some consents, which tool to collect carry out the DPIA you are using, and you have to just Google them and check whether they are compliant and whether they are decided as compliant. And in this case, the IAB Europe is working on enhancing the TCF platform. They are not really fined. There is just an investigation. It's ongoing. But remember to do your paperwork. Remember to do your DPIAs. Remember to understand whether your consent is freely given, whether it is informed, whether it is not bundled with other consents, and so on and so on. It's actually remember. And if you are using just a service that is ready to go, don't hesitate to make your own safeguards. It's important.
Yeah, so don't believe that everything that you can buy like a GDPR compliant tool forever will actually work and make you compliant.
And actually forever, yes.
Yeah, okay, so
do you have any questions?
Yes, so one question there was, I believe, from Tony Robinson.
Oh.
He asks us whether does having the host in a GDPR compliant state makes all websites hosted by such host also compliant to GDPR.
Not really, because compliance is the responsibility of the controller. You can't just assign it to anyone else. If you are using a GDPR compliant part of your service, like a consent mechanism or something like that, you have other areas of compliance to take care of. So, of course, if you're using a consent mechanism and you don't use your own safeguards, you don't understand how it works completely, you can't manage some settings that used in this consent tool, you can't safely say that you are compliant because you are using it.
Okay, so thank you for answer. Then, guys, we came to the finish. Yeah. Actually, yes, we have here our email. In case you watch this webinar and you want to get a 1 point from IAPP for watching and attending this great webinar, I believe, you can just write us to an email. Also, just some kind of words from us. We provide different GDPR services, as you may guess, and we do GDPR audits, we do GDPR compliance, and also we provide DPO services, external DPO services. I can be a DPO, Kate can be your DPO, and it will be awesome, actually. So don't hesitate to contact us and ask us for help if you need some kind of DPO services or GDPR services.
And subscribe to our pages in LinkedIn, in YouTube, and Facebook. We are always happy to see you again on our webinars, and we will really invite you to watch our other videos.
By the way, if you are some kind of privacy pro from different than Ukraine country, you may write us and ask for some kind of cooperation. We are thinking of making some kind of new.
We are always expanding our network. Yes.
Yeah, and we are thinking of making a new show when we will talk about the regulations in different countries, privacy regulations, and you may be a special guest of it. Okay, thank you very much for coming. Say goodbye.
See ya.
Goodbye.